teacups, what's brewing? Welcome back to the channel. Chantal has returned to us in a live stream that I would give you the name of, but she changed it 3 times. So let me give you all the names and then we'll get into it. So when she started live streaming, it was called Healthy Talk Live Update. As soon as the live stream was finished, it changed to I'm Skinny. And a little bit later, certainly during the time that I was watching it, it changed again to I've been in a Kuwait hospital. So I think she was really just digging for those views. The actual live title was quite simple. Then she wanted to bait us, and then she wanted you to know, no, health arc. So those were the iterations of the title we went through. There was some speculation that maybe we were wrong before, maybe she hadn't traveled, maybe she was traveling now, or maybe that she'd traveled before, had actually been on her way back when she went live last time and she was looking like super swollen, she had those indents in her face and it was all very alarming. And that had resulted in her getting sick, already being sick, and they were waiting for a clinic to open, I do believe, at the end of the last time. Full disclosure, I did not watch the live on the Kuwaiti beach live. I caught the highlights through people and was like, that is enough. So she's unpacking a bag, which we find out is her hospital bag. It is silent for a minute or two at the beginning of her live. She's been doing that more and more recently. I'm not sure if it's the way she's got it set up or if she's purposely muted. She does tend to come on and be like, oh, I pressed it accidentally. But it was her on screen today and not the avatar. And to be fair, filters or no filters, compared to how she looked before, she's looking a lot better. Apparently she's not feeling very well though. She may do more lives. She doesn't feel like doing videos until she's better. I'm assuming she doesn't want to sit and edit. She probably doesn't have the focus. After the beach, she was feeling really sick. I am not surprised. She looked like she was about to keel over and she thought she would rest. But then despite the fact that she was clearly very ill outside and the heat was really doing a number on her as well, and she was having the same symptoms as we discussed last react, she waited another couple of days and then went back to the same doctor she went to before. I think this is the doctor that was like, eat by hand size, that dude, the one that was like, yeah, don't eat all of these things. And then when she had to go back to the doctor because she'd screwed herself over the first time, she was like, oh, I think I'll go to another doctor because, you know, I'm guessing she didn't want to face that conversation. Tell you what though, it must have really been terrifying her if she was willing to go back and be like, yeah, I didn't do it, but please could you help? He did more blood work. Apparently her blood sugar was like 22. They did a urine test and he was shocked at the numbers on the kidneys. Sugars wouldn't go down no matter how many pills she took. How the hell many did she take? Someone tell me. I'm guessing a lot. I know she admitted to taking 3 a day instead of 2, but if she's like, no matter how many, you can bet that it was probably at least 4 before she gave up and went to the doctor. The doctor said that the pill she's on doesn't really work if you have kidney issues. I was assuming that this was supposedly the doctor that told her to up her meds, or maybe that was the second one. But now I guess we can just say that she decided to up her meds herself. So the doctor writes her a note and says she needs to go to the hospital to see, I can't remember the type of doctor she said. Somebody will know it down in the comments, I'm sure. I couldn't quite understand what she said when she was telling me the name. So she goes to the hospital with this note and she can't believe, she's amazed how Western the treatment was, because she says it was really good service. Like, she is not usually that complimentary about the hospital she abuses in the West. You know, the ones that she goes to emergency when she eats too much cheese but doesn't pay the taxes for, that one. And then they have not so great elevators and they don't treat her like she's a special little snowflake immediately. And they like prioritize people who are sicker than her. But no, it wasn't just a good hospital, it was so Western. Western medicine is only worth arguing about when she can't eat what she wants to eat, I suppose. So she was put on an IV for antibiotics. She had lots of fluids. They gave her a big syringe of something that she doesn't seem massively concerned about. Just some kind of solution. They were giving me 5 milligrams an hour. Honey, if you could read the dosage, you could read the medicine. She says that she has hospital selfies and she may make a video when she feels up to it. She intended to, but she hasn't felt up to it yet. She says she's on insulin now and she's still taking her, she calls it metformin, but I'm assuming she means that combination drug she was on, and antibiotics. So she's got quite a few things happening right now. She has an appointment with an internalist coming up at the hospital. Also, a diabetes education program coming up. That's going to be both the best and the worst thing ever, because when she was told certain things by the doctor, one assumes they were balancing up everything that was wrong with her. And I think whatever is in the education program, one, she is not going to understand very well. And two, she is going to cherry pick just to show how the other doctor clearly didn't know what he was talking about and she can eat what she wants. But at least she will know what she's ignoring now, which is kind of nice. She has some sort of injectable pen to take in the evening. That evening is going to be her first dose. They gave her some warnings over what to watch out for. She seemed confused, and given her history, I suppose I could understand why. But what to watch out for low blood sugar, I'm guessing in case the medicine ends up overcorrecting and she swings too much the other way. I think someone in the chat must have asked about Ozempic. For a good portion of this live that I was rewatching, I didn't have the chat on screen because it hadn't loaded yet, and when it did load, I saw a few more things. But she's not doing Ozempic because right now it's only available for Kuwaitis. There are certain medicines in Kuwait, with the way they've got their healthcare set up, that are reserved solely for citizens because there are shortages, and I'm guessing Ozempic must be one of them. Actually, when I was reading up on this, it seems like the government is building warehouses right now, or assigning warehouses or something like that to be like storage places for certain medicines so they can control the distribution more. So it's harder to get around it if you present in a hospital and the doctor's like, oh, I'll help you out. You can't kind of get around things. Now, I do have a price list for certain medicines because of the conversation we're going to have about money later. I was trying to check current prices, but they have changed, and must be quite recently, to an e-service so that you can put in the details and you can see if there's a medicine shortage, if it's available, who it's available to, if you're covered, etc., etc. Just as a note, we are 10 minutes into the recording. I don't know how long that was under there. Apologies if it's been there for a while. I've wiped it off now. I'm guessing it came off my lip when I sipped. Oh, that's wonderful. Now, unfortunately, when I went in to check for insulin or anything like that, it wouldn't let me open up the webpage because I'm outside of Kuwait. So the list I have, I might actually end up linking it either in the description or a pinned comment, but the list I have is for 2022, I believe December 2022. There has been more and more talk and more exclusion of non-Kuwaiti citizens from services, or increased costs for non-Kuwaiti citizens for services, and we'll go through that a little bit in a bit. She said the food in the hospital was real food, because obviously that's her priority as she presents with a blood sugar of 22 and is sent to the emergency room. Someone in the chat asked about bariatric surgery. She says it's not an option right now, but they told her to lose weight ASAP. She said, well, I have been by default, but then switches back to talking about the tea, presumably so people can't call her out on that very nuanced statement. Because telling a doctor, no, I recognize I have to lose weight and I'm in quite a bad way and I have really been doing that, versus I was so sick I couldn't physically shove in the takeout I've been eating 3 times a day, a little bit different. She goes back, and the audacity of her, but it's hard to lose weight when you're addicted to food. Yes, we know. Looking back on the mukbang she was eating, you don't realize, this is a quote, you don't realize you're looking for excuses to eat what you're eating. Maybe you don't when the only sounding board you've got is your own brain controlling that addiction. But she does not live in isolation. She has had her entire channel's following discuss that very point every time she goes back to mukbangs, every time she gets angry at the diet, every time she sits there and explains to us in a very patronizing way why this isn't a binge, because she can do so much worse. But no, I simply didn't understand before. Obviously now everything's changed. There are pauses in this where it's just her responding in little bits to the chat. So if it feels like it jumps around a lot, I've probably missed a time slot somewhere and just been like, yeah, there was nothing in this. So when I skip to says she doesn't have crackers, it's because someone mentioned it in the chat. A lot of the people in her chat don't mean her well. Like the people coming in and saying, oh yeah, practical diabetic coma, eat some white carbs. Someone does say, please stop being sick. And she goes, that's the goal. I'm like seriously fed up. This is it. This is the time. You literally went through this a month ago. If that wasn't the time when you were praying to God for forgiveness, why would we believe this is the time? It wasn't then, and it ain't now. She says she might do live streams where we cook or eat together, but it's not going to be unhealthy stuff. So pot pie when? Pot pie when? I'm sure that little bit of brown flour in the crust will just take every other problem out of it. You can eat it by the fistful. She circles around some of the medical points for a while and basically says, I had a bad kidney infection. The infection can cause blood sugars to be high, but then the high blood sugars can cause you to get infected, and it just ends up being this vicious cycle. She started at the beginning of the sentence to say something like they didn't want her to leave the hospital by the sound of it, but she literally breaks off mid-word to bitch at somebody in the chat who I think wished that she had told us what had happened, in that kind of basic respect for your audience kind of way where you're like, hey, I'm still sick, I'll be with you soon. Just for the 5 visas still paying your bills. But no, she goes on a bit of a rant. She shows the bruise from the IV, presumably to prove she was there, keeps going on about how she didn't want to talk to anyone, about how her mum had to message Salah directly because Chantal didn't update her for a whole day. Bear in mind, she was in the hospital and she would have told her mum she was feeling terrible. Like, okay, we don't really matter. In the whole internet of it all, it's all just swings and roundabouts. We're just sitting here watching our stories, saying our stuff, and she's just raging about it. Long term, although she makes money off of it, it's not that important to history. Why would you leave your mum hanging like that? That is a horrible thing to do. Like, she birthed you. At some point, she genuinely cared about you. If she's put up with you for this long, obviously she does. Like, at the very least, just tell Salah to call her. Don't make her chase you in the Middle East really sick. So apparently they were testing her and her blood sugar was fluctuating a lot. It would go down a little, then they test it again, it would have jumped up. But once they had got it below 10 for a while, they said she could go home. So she has to do the education course about what she can eat, and then she'll argue it because she's got so many other problems. She's got to do follow-up appointments with the internalist, I think she said, or whatever. Her phrase, not mine. The internalist or whatever. Says that they didn't really talk about what to eat. And I'm just like, my dear. You said that the doctor you saw before this explained all about it with the hand thing, which you obviously didn't stick to, and they've booked you in to an education course that's going to explain it all to you. I think they probably don't think you're going to stick to it, so what's the point in wasting their breath and time? But it means we can expect diabetes health lecturer Chantal any day now. And I know best about nutrition and health and all the medical things over that of my doctor's recommendations is always my favorite Chantal. She grabs a paper and starts rustling it, saying she was going to make a video. They seem to be her test results. She says they were mostly worried about her creatine. Have I said that right? Creatinine levels. Excuse me for the mispronunciations. Google tells me that it's a sign of impaired kidney function, as high levels can indicate either like damage or disease. Apparently hers was pretty high, but the doctor says that her function was better than last time. So last time she must have been on death's door. But she says that her A1C is down a whole point. Apparently it's on like 9 or something now, which is still high, but less than 10. She was relieved healthcare was so accessible. because if you showed up in Canada with no health insurance, you'd be paying like America. So no health insurance confirmed, which we knew, but it's always good to have it confirmed. You know, it's nice to have that snippet on camera to refer back to. Susie apparently hits a nerve in chat, and Foodie just catches herself midway through calling her the R word and is now irritated and blocking chat because somebody suggests, and this is not the first time she's heard this suggestion, that Salah might need her for money. We are stupid and ignorant, in her words. And now she's off and ranting because apparently people say she can't afford healthcare. I'm assuming from the slightly terrible southern-ish accent she puts on that she's talking about Yaba, but I haven't watched anything. Chantal suddenly projecting her inner monologue way too hard, then rants about the fact that you stereotype me as a fat woman, a disgusting fat woman who's only being used for money. That's your effing problem, doesn't mean it's true, just means you're delusional. Whoa there, Nelly, did we hit a nerve? I say we, I don't think people were saying that. I'm sure people think it because the circumstances under which you came to Kuwait were interesting at best. And there's no real explanation why Salah is all in if we can't see the benefit. Because I'm sorry, I realise how rude this is, but you're not particularly likeable. Now, I think it's Steve that says there's a lid for every pot, and isn't that a lovely thought? But you have not been above paying for people before. You're actually infamous for it. So don't blame us for applying all of the past ways you've run your business to the current way you're trying to run it. Now, bear in mind, I was too soon after the stream ended, so I couldn't see exactly what chat had said to her to trigger this, but there didn't seem anything big. A little bit of internalized anxiety and self-hatred on camera there. You might want to wipe it off a little bit. I realise him cheating on you and inviting another woman to come sleep in your bed while you were away may have been a little bit embarrassing, but, you know, if you've chosen to move on, this doesn't feel like you've moved on. So she's irritated. As big as she's been, she's never had a problem getting a good, and then she catches herself and remembers nada and modifies her statement. And Salah starts laughing his stupid laugh from the other room through the door, and it's quite loud, and then forces her out again for show because he can hear himself on camera, which does rather beg the question, all those other times when she said, no, Salah's in the other room, and we couldn't hear him, suddenly look a little bit suspect, don't they? Because apparently it's very easy to hear what's going on in there. Somebody quite shadily, not incorrectly, but quite shadily in the chat asks if it was a particular meal that sent her to the R and what was it? And she said, no, it wasn't anything particular, but the bad food doesn't help. Travel plans are not on hold. She's drinking milk tea. Someone says milk tea fan confirmed because I finally reloaded the page. And she says she's a fan of the drink milk tea, not the overused name of every friggin' edgelord reactor wannabe. Wannabe? Excuse you, madam. I get more views than you do some days. But I will say that was quite the emotional little journey you just took us both on. So she lists what she went through in the hospital. Staying overnight, getting all the labs, getting all the medications, follow-up appointments, consultation fee to see the doctor. Someone asked if she has her results. She said she has the ones from the clinic that she brought with her to the ER at the hospital. This is a whole conversation we've got to have. She said she's telling us the cost for transparency and the clinic was more expensive, but she does not verify how much she spent in the clinic. Don't worry, I've researched it. But in the hospital, you go in, you get triage, you see the doctor, you stayed in observation, she had insulin, diabetes medication, meals, IV antibiotics, followed up with a visit to the internalist and the education course. And apparently it was less than 50 Canadian dollars. It was about 10 Kuwaiti dinar. I call bullshit on this so very hard. So very hard. Like, there is a basic part of me that just goes, no. Without any proof, just goes, no. And the fact that she didn't mention what she paid at the main clinic is probably what's going on here. So I went and looked around for some information of how much these kinds of things cost. And I've got a few sources. One was more anecdotal from searches and answers coming up on like forums. There was a site called migrantrights.org, I believe, which is like a charity or a support organization trying to protect poorer workers in the Middle East who are brought under either false circumstances or lied to about their rights and things like that, and their access to healthcare. So let's just take a look at that real quick. So when I searched just generally about costs of healthcare, I found a visa site that said, at the time of writing, it was quite recent, you can only access the public healthcare system. Remember, this is public, not private, if you have a civil ID card, and this is only issued to those who have a legal residency permit. If you're a visitor, you will need to either have comprehensive cover or pay out of pocket. Bear in mind, earlier this video, Chantal seemed to confirm that she had turned up without insurance because she said if I'd done that in Canada, it would have been American prices, and she'd been quite worried. Another note on a different visa site, I think it was, or an expat site, it should be noted that the country has increased the cost of medical care for expatriates on several occasions. You should now expect to pay between 2 Kuwaiti dinar, which is about $6.50, and 30 Kuwaiti dinar, which is $97 for a medical consultation. The cost varies according to the type of facility, polyclinic, public hospital, private hospital, etc. It seems like she went to a clinic because she saw the same doctor guy. It would have been a private clinic. That's where we saw her sitting in the waiting room doing the fake tears with the sample. Now, according to like the forum answers, when I was looking at, I think it was expat.com, but I might be wrong, someone was asking about kind of insurance and costs and access. And it seems that for just a private clinic consultation fee, it's about $25. Now, Chantal does say it was more expensive at the clinic, so it's probable she paid something like that for the consultation. Now, it is possible that the basic tests she didn't get charged for because she did pay the consultation fee, and unless she needs to see a specialist, if it's a basic test like a blood test or anything like that, she can just get it done. I'm trying to think back to my experience in the hospitals because I obviously give them my card, and so I don't pay when I'm seeing the GP. The GP consultation fee is covered, but it's only about 2.5 rial anyway, so about £5, $7.50 US. That might be a bit generous, $6.50 US. When I've gone to do something that hasn't been covered, at the hospital, seeing the dentist was 5 rial. That was the consult fee. I'm obviously talking in Omani rial now, not Kuwaiti dinar, because I've got too many currencies to transfer in my head. When I went to a clinic for the dermatologist, the consult was supposed to be 20 Omani rial, but they waived it because I ended up having a treatment that I paid for. And when I've come out, like I've been in, and when I wasn't getting better, they did blood tests, and they also sent me to the emergency section to have a nebulizer because I was really having trouble with my chest. It's not as dramatic as that sounds. You walk down a corridor and there's a door that says emergency, but it's not like inside. It's not like an A&E. I'm sure there are moments when it is, but it's just when you need to get treatment immediately and you don't want to have to make an appointment. You just need immediate relief. So the doctor can wave you down there, and it might just be that the hospital I go to for my doctor has those facilities. Because when it comes down to kind of how much Chantal claims she claims she paid 10 Kuwaiti dinar total for everything that happened, including like the overnight stay in the hospital, etc., etc. It's possible because she was presenting with something really urgent and they didn't have the facilities to care for her, that the note he wrote was some kind of referral saying this is an emergency, see her. And I'm not sure what kind of rules are in place to protect tourists, to give them access to treatment in what they are supposed to have as emergency situations. Because if you were actually visiting and not intending to stay, then getting sick like that on holiday would be a big thing. Now, whether she went to a public or a private hospital is a whole different thing. It seems like she wouldn't have access, or if she did, she'd have to pay a lot more out of pocket. So I've got another little article here on non-citizen residents. This is residents, though, using public facilities. And it says, in December 2022, Kuwait's Ministry of Health began charging non-citizen residents a medication dispensing fee at public hospitals and clinics. Now, this is only public. Non-citizens are now required to pay a flat fee of 5 dinar when collecting prescribed medications from primary health clinics and hospital emergency rooms, and 10 dinar at outpatient clinics. The new charges have been imposed in addition to the existing consultancy fees, which is 2 KD at a polyclinic and 10 at an outpatient clinic, as well as labs, inpatient care and radiology fees that migrant patients must pay when availing public health services. To renew their public health insurance, workers in the private sector also pay annual 50 KD, a sum which on paper is meant to be covered by the employer, although that's not always the case in practice. This came from the migrant rights website, which is why they're particularly highlighting that. So if the doctor at the private clinic had been able to bypass that system with the referral and she'd gone to a public clinic, she would have had to pay. She would have had to pay for everything. If he sent her to a private clinic, there was something going around. I think an expat tried to get into a hospital or an emergency room with someone else's ID, and he had died. He'd had like a cardiac event, and they were trying to trace the original owner of the ID, the passport I think it was, to try and find out who this guy was. And basically they had to put out I think it was a circulation basically saying under certain circumstances people will not be refused treatment. But when I looked at that, it seemed to be mostly like emergency heart attack type events. But I don't know the state she was in when she got to the clinic, quite frankly, so who knows at this point. So the other thing I found was that 2022 price list. Now, what I've actually done, I've just taken a cut of the list of insulin prices they've got here. Now, the Kuwaiti government does control the price of items. Sometimes in private pharmacies, you will see the price a little bit higher, but there is generally a set price to make it more accessible. So I've just put a red line around the injectable insulin, so I'm guessing she's on one of these, and the price of each of them. The reason there are multiple prices there, one is the unit price, and then one is the retail price. So as someone paying out of pocket, she would have to pay the retail price, which would be this at a minimum. We don't know exactly which medication she's got. We don't know what dose she's got, but it's very unlikely that she walked out and they were like, have it for free. Now, all of these are under 10, so it's possible if she had a small consultancy fee in the hospital and then had to pay for this medicine, that the other things were under the umbrella of the consult she had in the clinic. Basically, I'm not sure, but it doesn't make sense. And I also don't trust Chantal's ability to exchange currency at all. So who knows what she actually paid, plus whatever she paid at the clinic that she doesn't seem to want to own up to. I think the reason she's trying to make it sound as cheap as possible is a kind of gotcha for the people saying she can't, but if she needs anything, she really can't. Like, if she starts having to go see specialists, if she's got to start paying for her insulin medication along with her pills every month, because if she needs to inject herself every day, she needs to inject herself every day. It's not like she's going to change her diet. Like, that is going to get expensive real fast. With the appointments, I have the same thing in the hospital here, where if you come back for a return appointment, you don't get charged for the appointment again. You just say, no, I'm coming back. So it might be something like that with her. Once you've had the initial, the returns aren't charged. But if she thinks she's going to get away with it just being free outside of this emergency situation, she's got a shot coming. Americans in the chat are sharing expenses from the US, which all look quite crazy. She says she knows, and that was why she was so afraid, but she feels very blessed. Doesn't pay for it here, doesn't pay for it in Canada. Chantal is just reading the chat at this point, trying to get attention from her cat. She said she was in a shared room, but there was only one other person in there. She complains that she couldn't get sleep because of a maybe dementia patient just repeating stuff all night. God, Kuwait, get your act together. Give her a private room. Make sure the soundproofing is better. She has to take her first injection tonight. She's got like a little pen you stab yourself with. And we're talking food. Shock. Despite the fact that we're talking food, this is it. Health arc incoming. She doesn't know what she was thinking and then cops to eating all 20 of those Frankfurter sausages. Says matchboos is not off the menu because they gave her chicken and rice in the hospital. Oh, I've got a feeling health guru Chantal is imminent. The point is to eat a fraction of what she was eating. Said moderation, but she's not going to be eating like Burger King and KFC in moderation, stuff like that. And dietitian Chantal has entered the chat, telling us that the doctor doesn't want her eating eggs and lots of cheese. I mean, she was told that before, she ignored it. People think it's sugar that causes diabetes, but it's actually high-fat food, so no red meat. And crucially, when she goes to the diabetic education thing, she'll compare. I'm sure that will go well. I have a feeling she's going to use the fact that the doctor was perhaps trying to adapt to her many, many health concerns to say he doesn't know what he was talking about because what he told her is different than what the straight diabetic clinic told her, as if she's got no other failing organs. She says, a lot of you guys who were concerned were right. I was playing with fire, like she's still not. Put all my effort into eating healthy. Says she is not going back to Canada. She says she thinks the medicine, etc., is just included in the price of consultation, possible in emergency situations. But she, like I said, she did say the clinic was more expensive, but doesn't elaborate on that. She told the doctor he was scaring her with the high numbers of her kidney readings at the first clinic, and he was trying to reassure her, saying it's reversible, it's an infection. No, man, scared the shit out of her because it's the only way she learns. You got to keep her at this level of terrified all the way. Apparently she's not though, because let's talk movies. Oh God, let's not. She shows a bag of stolen hotel tea, coffee amenities with sugar and coffee mate. Apparently she took them from the hotel in Thailand, or we assume so because the writing's in Thai. Howie had stolen some stuffing from that silly dancing cactus, apparently gnawed through it, so apparently they were taking good care of him. Chantal says that she has, she had lots of dancing dolls growing up. I used to collect those creepy China dolls you get on like the stands that look like Victorian children. I find them quite terrifying now. I don't know why I didn't when I was a small child, where they could clearly wake up in the night and kill me, but I used to keep them in a cabinet in my room, and it used to scare my siblings away. Chantal wants to know if any instant coffee is good. Not in my opinion. You can live with it in a pinch. I think James Hoffman did a video on how to make instant coffee taste the best it can. But she's used to those 3-in-1 trash, so I don't think so. A pod machine wouldn't set her back too much. She said she doesn't like Keurig. I think she might be using Keurig. Sorry, it's not a common brand in England. We have the Dolce Gusto machines and the Nespresso. It's a different shaped pod. Those are okay and very easy. I don't love them. I prefer to have a little espresso machine just for like a proper group head that you can put ground coffee into, and she can get those pretty reasonably priced and they're really not bad. I have like a bean to cup machine, but I'm also a teacher and I probably have more caffeine than blood at this point. But you can get the little espresso makers reasonably priced, and most supermarkets have like a counter where they sell nuts and dates and coffee beans, and they will even grind the coffee beans for you, so she doesn't need a grinder if she doesn't want them. So if she's looking for something that's a little better than instant but isn't going to set her back hundreds and thousands of pounds, then that would be a good compromise. She mentions Folgers, whatever it's called. I immediately have a PTSD flashback to when I tried it last year. My God, it is the worst coffee. I have had some bad coffee in my life, friends. My God, it is the worst. So bear in mind, she is very serious about her health. She decides, after a little bit more chat, to have one of the Nescafe instants and a cheese slice and one of those Rusk cake things that they bought before, I think, to dip in the coffee. All excellent choices given everything we've just talked about immediately preceding this. She complains the cheese is salty. She gets Howie, or is given Howie more realistically, and feeds him some of the cheese. She asks if anyone wants to go live later while she cleans, says the kitchen is disgusting and below her standards. This is a shock to me because I didn't realize she had standards. She'll rest for most of the day and she'll maybe come live again in the evening. I consider that a threat. It hasn't happened yet, but this is going to take me a while to edit down. So who knows by the time I finished. I can tell you now I'm not reacting to it today. She says that people are reveling over her looking bad and sick, but she's going to look so good, biatches. She then clarifies good as in health because she's going to take care of herself. I don't think either statements are true, to be honest. And for the record, I was not reveling. I was gawping. What on earth have you done to yourself? That looks horrifying. Go to the hospital. But it was very much more horror. Or at least it was until the next thing out of her mouth was she wants lentil soup, crusty bread, baked brie, and grapes. That is what she wants for dinner. So learning well. The next however many days until that diabetic clinic is going to be the world's biggest fast food funeral. She talks about food and then remembers for a minute that, probably that's not a good idea. She says she's not sad she can't eat it right now because her body would reject it vehemently. Not vehemently. No, she is very much sure of the pronunciation she has chosen to use. Vehemently is how she feels. She starts talking about pot pie as if she heard me. You would think someone couldn't be this predictable, but my God. She says she would have to make a healthy one like she did before, except she ate all of it before and admits to that here. She talks about countries to choose from for the next lot of travel, but it depends on her health, so we need to get healthy ASAP. She wants to buy cute outfits. Least of your worries right now, my darling. A lot of the places she seems to be mentioning are sort of far east. Some of the cheaper places like Vietnam, Cambodia, that kind of place, perfectly fine to do. She did mention some other places, to be honest. China is cheap, but would be difficult for her. Singapore would not be cheap. But either way, she's looking at kind of that side of the world. People say go to Australia and collab with the other Mariam lady, which the conversation doesn't go very far, but it's finally time for her to go, and she says she'll come back later. Joy, I will not be here. Okay, everybody, so that is where we are. That is the catch up. God knows how many more of these live streams we'll get because she does like her low effort content and she wants the sympathy and the views. So yeah, I imagine we're going to see her a bit more, and I guess I'll be here. All right. Like I said, if she goes live again, I am reacting to it. I'll probably catch some of the highlights just in case anything big comes out. But other than that, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.